Hello, and it's good morning for me. It's your girl Conquering Jackie Daniels, and on this fine Sunday morning, my weekend to relax, renew, um, restore. And I wanted to talk about something on this channel. Now, the name of my channel is A Cup of J. And I figured a cup of J a day will keep issues away, will keep nonsense away. So that's my new channel that I am starting, and I feel like I'm in my element, and I want to make more videos for the people that consider me motivating, consider me inspiring. This video is for them. Hopefully you would share this message with someone else that you think needs it. Hopefully that you will send me a like or give me a like and just listen, maybe even take notes. I know when I am getting some word, some soul nourishing word, I like to take notes so that I can go back and look at the messages or look at and it can bless me over and over again. So here's the thing. What I want to talk about is when I want to talk about Eve in Genesis this morning, because I think her message resonates with me on so many levels. And I'm talking about the presence of God is what I'm talking about, and what happens when you leave the presence of God. Because I speak a lot about malfunctioning, and a lot of the times the malfunctioning comes because we've left the presence of God, and we're in the presence of things that don't give us the spiritual connection that we need. So I'm going to talk about how Eve's story, how in Genesis, God creates male and female, and it said he created them. And then it goes down to, it talks about when God created Eve. Adam and Eve became one flesh, if you know that story. But I want to talk about when sin was offered into their lives, when Eve allowed the serpent to trick her into eating from the fruit that God warned them not to eat of. And I want to talk about the message behind that very act of her eating from that tree, and how I can relate it in my life, how something so simple that you think is not a big deal can end up ruining your life. So here it is. Now, when it talked about how Eve ate that apple from that tree, and she gave some to Adam, and it's like they immediately knew that they were naked. That's what I want to talk about. The fact that they were naked and not ashamed before the sin. Like, they were naked and not ashamed before the sin, but after the sin, she became aware that she was naked. She became aware that that the shame came upon her so the shame just overtook her until now you're hiding from God. You're hiding because you disobeyed. You're hiding because you did something that he warned you not to do. So now you become aware that you're naked, whereas before you didn't know you were naked. And so naked in meaning before she ate from that tree was innocence, was purity of your conduct, like you was unclothed. You knew that you belonged to God. You knew all the good things because you were in paradise. You know, you only knew of good. You knew of nothing bad. You knew of no unworthiness, no self-confidence issues, no low self-esteem issues. You knew of none of those things until you ate that fruit, until you disobeyed. So here's the thing. After they ate from the tree, their eyes were opened and they knew they were naked. They hid behind fig leaves because now you're trying to cover yourself because you know that you're naked. Naked means something different than it did before. Let me go over here where I wrote this down. Okay, so Genesis 2:25 said that once they ate the fruit, they knew that they were naked. Now here's naked in the middle of you, right? So on this side of naked is the before. That's before you ate the fruit. Okay, and then on this side is after the actions after you ate the fruit. So here's what happened. Before they ate the fruit, they were not ashamed. They did not know that they were naked. They only understood paradise. They only understood good. There was no iniquity. There was no wrong in their lives. But after they ate that apple, then here comes all this sin coming in. It's like you're opening yourself up to get victimized. So now, after they ate the apple, now they're afraid. And once they became afraid, they feel the shame. And once they felt the shame, they hid from God because they knew they were naked. And they feel guilty. Okay, now here's the gotcha. You're out of God's will now. Because now you disobeyed God. You're out of his presence because now you're hiding. And that's what some of us do. When we sin, when we go against God's will, we hide. Why do we hide when we go against God's will? We hide because we're ashamed. We hide because we're embarrassed. But here's the thing. Don't go back over here with the sin that caused you to become aware of the fact that you just disobeyed God. Don't go back over here to what caused it. You need to come over here to where God can still heal you. Because you sinned, because you got out of the will of God, just come back. Don't go back to what got you out of the will of God, because that's where we malfunction. So here's the thing that I'm saying. Like, for me, I recognized that when I am not in God's presence, I malfunction. What does my malfunction look like? I'm easily angered. I'm easily frustrated. I'm working in survival mode, and the belief in myself is low. I'm not operating from a high vibration anymore. Now I'm operating in a very low vibration of myself because I'm out of God's presence. And so it's just a simple switch. But sometimes we don't recognize that we are out of God's presence because whatever got us out of God's presence enticed us. So it still looks like it's a good idea. And so sometimes we stay over there longer than we should, instead of coming back to God's presence, repenting, asking for forgiveness, and starting over. There's nothing wrong with starting over. What's wrong is when you stay in your mess. And when you stay in your mess, the only other thing that comes to you is more mess. It's like when you are, what I was going to say. Let me go back. I don't want to get off my message. Okay. Here's what I said before. I said, once you out of the will of God, once you're out of his presence, if you would just think for a moment and just come back into his presence, then you can fix whatever is going on. You can correct it. You can get back on target. But the longer you stay in mess, the longer you're going to be stressed. So then here's the questions that God started to ask. So after they ate from the tree, their eyes was open and they knew that they were naked, and they hid with fig leaves. Naked meaning feeling guilty, now exposed, vulnerable to God's judgment. So when they heard God's voice, and they felt that they had been disobedient, they hid. So they hid themselves from the presence of God. And God said, who told you that you were naked? So that is a question. And then following that question, he said, hast thou eaten from the tree which I commanded thee not? And here's where it breaks down. First, God asks for their presence. Like, where are you? And when you look at your life, if it is God asking you that question, like, where are you? Because I have not seen you. You have not been in my presence. So you're out there uncovered. You're out there naked. You're out there hiding yourself from your sin. But guess what? You're hiding yourself from me, but things are still bombarding you. So why not come where you can get covering? Why not come back up under my covering? So God is asking, where are you? Then God asks for the sorrow. Who told you you were naked? That's your sorrow. That's your sin. Who told you that you were unworthy? Who told you that you were unlovable? Who told you that you were not enough? Who told you that? Because that's the presence of the person that you've been in. You cannot have been up under God's presence and believe those words of somebody else's telling you you're unlovable, you're not enough, you're unworthy. Because if you had been under God's presence, those words would bounce right up off of you. They wouldn't even stick to you. They wouldn't even matter in your life. So then he said, God asked for their sin. Has that eaten from the tree from which I forbidden you? So you got to ask yourself the question, what caused you to feel unworthy? What caused you to feel unloved? What caused it? What's the sin that caused that to happen in your life? What's the sin that caused you to be bad with money? What's the sin that caused you to be to have to end your marriage and divorce? Like, what caused this? Because you are, look, you're the potter. You make the clay. You mold yourself. So it's not somebody on the outside of you. It's you. It's you still get to decide. You still get to choose. So regardless of what the situation was, you chose the response. You chose the reaction. So when God is saying, has that eaten from the tree? Have you eaten from what sin have caused your life to be like it is right now? Because these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Then it says, God asks for the reason. See, after God asks for the sin, now God asks for the reason. What have you done? That's basically what he's saying. What have you done? I put you in paradise. You was naked and you knew of no wrong. Now you're over here where you're uncovered. You're now more aware of wrong in the world, and now you are open to anything that can come and take your life. Basically, that's basically what you're doing. You're like a dead woman, dead man walking now. Anything could take your life because you removed yourself from the presence of God. And so then I go over here to when God said, who told thee that thou were naked? When you are naked in life, you are uncovered, you are unprotected, you are exposed, and you're vulnerable. And so when you're naked, you're without God's covering. You're without God's covering when you're naked, and you're vulnerable to others deceiving you. You're vulnerable. Others can easily guide you to danger. Others can easily lead you to mischief, and they can become heavy influencers over you. And be careful of the people who want to get you from up under your covering. That was a big one for me. You have to be very protected of yourself. That's why you have to spend your time with God. You cannot get out of his presence for long because somebody can lead you astray. They can lead you astray. They can lead you away from God. And next thing you know, you're doing things that you never thought you would do. And now you've led yourself so far away from God until you don't even know how to get back to God's presence. And so now you feel all of this shame come up on you. You did so much dirt, you did so much sin till you don't even know how to come back and just you got to get in God's presence so you will know. Go back home. Go back to God. You can go to God when you can't go to nobody. Go back to God and repent and tell him you're sorry. Sit there in the presence of God and let God love on you. Let God tell you who you are. Because when the world tells you who you are, they destroy you. Okay? Because when you allow the world to tell you who you are, then you allow the world to control your happiness, control your success, control your purpose. And you don't want to do that, because one thing life does not do, it does not stop. Life continues on. Life, you can't get years back. You can't get months, days back, because you can't repeat yesterday. That's just the bottom line. So you have to get this and know that when you are out of the presence of God, you are uncovered and you are unprotected. And most of the times in this world, sometimes a lot of us African American women feel unprotected. We feel neglected. We feel disrespected, and we blame other our men in our lives, or we blame the men that are around us. But what we need to do is come back to the presence of God so that we can feel that protection, so that we can feel wanted and needed, so that we can feel like we are getting the respect that we need. So here's the thing: you cannot control what a man or other people will do to you, but you can only control your absence from their presence. So go get out of their presence and come back over here to God's presence. Okay? Why would you be in the presence of a man that disrespect you? Or why would you be in the presence of a man that neglect you? Why would you be in the presence of a man that will not protect you? So come back over here to God's protection, to God's covering. Come back to God's covering. He's going to protect you. Here's the thing about God. God uses people to do his will. If there's a man out there for you, he's going to be there. He's going to be that man that protects you. He's not going to be that man that neglects you. You're going to be loved. He's going to be that man that respects you. But you're not going to find him. God sets the path for him to find you. God puts that connection together. It ain't you doing anything. All you have to do is come back to God's presence. See, as long as you're out of God's presence, that's probably what you're going to attract. Those type of men or that type of woman. Come, get back into God's presence so God can lead you correctly, and let God be a part of your relationship. You know, I remember the movie that T.D. Jakes, I think it was with Taraji and Morris Chestnut, and I think it was called Unbroken or Broken, not easily broken. And the pastor was asking him, who is the third wheel in your marriage? And it was her husband, and her mom. And God said, and the pastor said, well, where's God in that twine or in that rope or whatever? You know, you led God out of your marriage, and that's why it's malfunctioning. If you really take anything from this video, what I'm basically telling you is, it don't matter what's going on in your life, you can always come back to God's presence. That's what I'm actually saying. I remember when I was going to this church, and I was going to this church, and at this church I would go to church all day Sundays. I would go to church on Wednesdays. I would go to church on Fridays. And I remember when I started to malfunction because I stopped going to church as much. But what I realized was that it took all of that for me to stay functioning properly on a daily basis. I needed to go to church as much because there was something in my spirit that needed to be controlled. There was something in my spirit that was just chaotic without the structure or without the discipline. So going to church and being around the people in the church and wanting to do good helped me a lot. But then I was led astray, and when I was led astray, it was very simple how it was done, because they got me from up under my covering little by little. First it was instead of going to Bible study on Wednesday night, let's go over here, whatever. That was that one thing. Then eventually they got me from going to my pastoral teaching on Friday. Then it was, oh, come go to my church. And the person eventually got me from up under my covering. And so when they got me from up under my covering, I started malfunctioning. Like the things that I was doing was I was neglecting God, and that person basically became I wouldn't say became my God, because I would never say that, but that person took my time away from God, like I was giving it to him. But I still had what was instilled in me, so it had never left. So I'm saying that to say this: you can easily fall into a temptation when you come from up under your covering. Here's another example of when someone comes from up under their covering. When children leave home to go to college, they come from up under the covering of their parents. So now they have to depend on the lessons that was taught to them and how they were brought up. Now they have to bring to their remembrance now when temptation comes, because temptation definitely will come in college. Okay, trust me. And what the devil does is he traps our kids, and they're unable to know that it's a trap. They become under the influence of their peer pressure. And so what I wrote is, I said, it's like when college kids leave home from up under their covering, they go into the wow and they forget their home training, or it's not until later that they recognize it's a mistake. Some never recover. And then I wrote, the streets become their serpent, whose only job is to kill, steal, and destroy. It kills their body with drugs and alcohol. It steals their youth, and it destroys their reputation or opportunities. And a lot of our college kids don't even recognize that a lot of the things that they're doing while they're in college can follow them. Their reputation follows them. And sometimes it destroys who you are, and it could get you so far away from God's presence that you don't even recognize that you are no longer in God's presence, or no longer under your parents' knowledge or wisdom. That you're not even listening to your parents' wisdom, how you were brought up. You're nothing like that now, because you allow college to change you. So you allow your college experience to get you away from your home training. I said, a woman who leaves from her covering of her parents is led astray into a boy's arms who is deceitful, but she doesn't see the deceit at the time. He leads her up under from her covering to his covering. And then she doesn't recognize when her self-esteem goes down or her self-confidence leaves her. Her peace of mind is stolen, and she now finds herself in a world all by herself. So that's what I said. But anyway, I'm going to end this video because I didn't want it to be so long. I just was going over some stuff that I thought was very relevant to this time. When you just consider your presence, consider how you do things in your life on a daily basis, and make sure you're spending that time with God. Regardless of what it is you got going on, just always make sure you're in God's presence and you're covered, and recognize when you are out of his presence, because you need to look at your behavior, look at your attitude, the way you speak, the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you're acting. Like, ask yourself, wait, am I in God's presence or am I out of his presence? Because this should not be my point of view at this moment. Things should not easily bother me. If something happens where I get a health scare, or something happens where my financials are all over the place, why am I immediately going to be in worry? Why am I immediately stressed? If I said that I'm a girl, a daughter of the King, daughter of God, the King, and how are these my thoughts? Then those are your thoughts, because you're out of the presence of God. You can't be in the presence of God and those are your thoughts. That's one of the ways that you haven't spent any time with him. Because if those are your immediate thoughts, worry, shame, guilty, feeling like you can't, like your abilities, that you can't get yourself out of situations, those are your feelings, you have a lot of doubt, you have a lot of fear, then you can't be in God's presence. So you need to think about what you're thinking. so that you can come back to God's presence. Because if you're going to give it to God, you can't worry about it. That's the basic bottom line. If you're going to pray about it, don't worry about it, because you can't do two things. Fear and faith cannot operate at the same time. Okay, so if you're going through something, then you have to recognize that you're either going to God said keep going. Hey, God said keep going. So you're going to keep going until you get to the other side. This too shall pass, is basically what I'm saying. This, whatever issue you have going on right now, money issue, health issue, your children not responding to your influence anymore, whatever issue that you're going through, this too shall pass. But you have to know that you have to stay in God's presence while you're going through it. Don't get out of God's presence because you're going through something. Because when you're out of his presence, then you allow things to cloud you. You allow things to overtake you. And sometimes your mind and your heart are not in alignment. So if your mind and your heart are not in alignment, then you may not overcome what it is that you are trying to overcome, whether it be your health, whether it be your finances, whether it be your children, whether it be your job, whatever it is, whatever your circumstance have you in at this moment, you can overcome it if you're in God's presence. But if you're not in God's presence, you allow other things to bombard you. And something simple that started out so simple can, just like Eve, take you out of your paradise and take you into anguish. And you don't want that. So again, it's your girl, Concrete Jackie. Thank you for watching A Cup of J. Hopefully you got a cup of J from me that keeps your stress away. Okay? Like this video, share this video, and come back for more. This right here, God said, keep going. This is a sweatsuit that is on my website, ASC Boutique. Okay, you could go and shop and get this sweatsuit or any other little trinkets that may help you get through your day. Okay, have a good morning.